I always had that entrepreneurial mind, but when it got really big corporate, I was like, time to move on. And that's actually when I started the podcast a couple of years ago, or I guess a few years ago now. I wanted to get back into entrepreneurship. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to jump into some podcasting stuff and just kind of see how that goes.
There's over 1.9 million podcasts. Most of them never see the results they expected. They want to monetize, but their show ends up costing them money, and they never achieve the listenership they desire. This show will help you launch, grow, monetize, and inspire with your podcast. Get ready to take notes, because here's your host, Adam Adams.
Hey, it's Adam Adams. And generally, as you may have gotten accustomed to, any even-numbered episode is supposed to be me alone pouring into you and your business. However, I did so many different interviews with so many really, really good people that on this episode today, even though this would typically just be me pouring into your business, me just sharing something short, like 5, 10, 20 minutes, where I poured into you and your podcast and growing your brand and really getting you in front of everybody. I'm going to do that today with an interview. So let's get right into it. And we're back with the podcast on podcasting. It's your host, Adam, AAA Adams, and Alex Sanfilippo. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing fantastic and great job on my last name there.
Yeah. Well, because we had to re-record it because I said something like Filipino or something.
All kinds of things. Yep. Nothing that I had not heard before. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Well, at least I'm not the worst. I'm just among the worst. Alex, it's really good to have you. For the listener, Alex is the host of a top 20 entrepreneurship podcast called Creating a Brand. And he also founded an app that my team is subscribing to as we speak. We've heard about it from many, many people. A lot of people love it. We've used a lot of services like this, and we're going to use just Podmatch for now on. It's a free service, which is kind of rad. And so you're listening, you're a podcaster, or you're about to start your podcast, and you're wondering, how do I get my brand out? How do I market my show? How do I get in front of more people? And one of the best ways you could ever do this is by getting your show in front of active podcast listeners. And the best way to do that is to get on other people's shows, because then you do something I call Trojan horse marketing, where you're basically invading the town of Troy in a very creative way. You put a couple people inside that horse, you go inside, they think it's a gift, and all of a sudden you've hacked their network, and you're going to be able to grow your show by getting in front of lots and lots and lots of people. And what's really cool about it is they already listen to podcasts, so they're more likely to be able to just transfer over to your show. Just like this call to action I'm about to share. So the podcast that Alex has is called Creating a Brand, and you can find that wherever you're listening to this. So if you're listening on iHeartRadio or Stitcher or Apple or wherever, you just push that button and you'll be able to automatically start listening to him there. And now he's the Trojan horse hacking into the listeners of this show, which is great because you would work perfectly for having a podmatch.com account. And they start out completely free. You get lots of value. What it basically does is it automatically connects you like a dating app. It connects you with other hosts that might want to have you on their show, or where you can actually bring them on your show. So with that said, Alex Sanfilippo, I said it right again.
You said it right again.
How you doing? How you doing today?
Man, I'm doing great. It's good to have this conversation with you. We've been connecting a lot recently, so it's great to be here. That introduction was fantastic. Thank you. I got to start paying you, I think.
Good. Well, I want to get in front of your audience. So the best way you can pay it forward is we can do a podcast swap or something like that. Because you've got a top 20.
I also share these episodes with my audience. So like a lot of my audience, this is an interesting thing, like kind of on this topic, is your listeners want to hear more of you, but usually you're the host, right? So my audience loves it when I'm on another show because I get to share it. And they're like, oh, Alex is actually talking more than just asking somebody 5 questions or whatever it might be. So that always goes really well. That goes really well too. So
awesome. Well, it is great to have you. I've respected you for a long time. I'm surprised. I've already told my team about you. I don't know if they've actually started that account yet, but I sent it to them again. I was like, we got to get this account today if we don't already have it. So I'm looking forward to it. I love that it's a free service. I love that it helps me to be able to get more guests and me to be able to grow my exposure by getting on other people's shows. I'm stoked about it. So what is your superpower? For example, you teach entrepreneurs and also you serve podcasters. What made you decide to do it?
Yeah. So my superpower right along with this is finding people that I care about's problems and coming up with a creative solution to solve them, which really in the essence is business, is entrepreneurship, right? But that's something that's actually, I'm not going to say came natural to me, that I've really worked into. So I just find people that I really care about. And for me, that's podcasters. Like I love being a podcaster myself. I love the industry. It's so much fun. So I just started asking those people, what are you struggling with? And was able to find a need and then create some sort of really creative solution to solve that problem. And if I had to pick a superpower, that's probably what it would be. Maybe something that you could use in one word, but maybe be empathetic, I suppose, toward the people that I really care about.
I like that. And isn't that like the definition of what entrepreneurship means?
Yeah.
Finding problems and solving them, basically.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get it wrong. We think that we need to find an idea, right? And then make a solution off that idea. But really, it's finding a problem and offering a solution is a much better definition.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Well, I don't remember. Must have been 2017 or something. I had a social media manager and we were creating lots of Instagram content. And they took a picture of me and they quoted me saying something like, entrepreneurship isn't about just making money. It's about helping other people solve problems. Something like that. I'm totally botching it, just like I botched your name before we started recording, which is awesome.
I like that quote,
Alex, it's so good to have you on the show because I've been really following you on Clubhouse a lot. You're in some really awesome circles with some people that are really making waves as well, where I'm trying to remember all of the interviews that I've heard you do on Clubhouse. But one of them was either like JLD or Steve, what's his last name? From Olsher. But it just sounds like you're really well connected in this industry. What's like the biggest lesson that you've learned over the last however many years that you got into podcasting? What are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned on your own or through some of these connections that you've made?
Yeah, I'd say the very first one is to ask people for help. So just talking about those connections is to ask. I still to this day, yes, I'm somewhat experienced in podcasting, but I will never become, like I'm doing air quotes here, the master, right? I always want to be the student when it comes to podcasting. So I even ask new people like for their advice on things. I ask these experienced people for their advice on things. And I think that that's always made me very approachable because no one's like, oh, he's just going to tell you what to do as soon as he starts talking, right? It's more so I want to learn. And if I can add value, yes, I'm going to. But being that student has helped me get into a lot of circles because not only am I a student, but I'm an implementer. So as soon as I learn something, and if it's right, I'll tell them like, hey, thank you so much. I'll usually shout them out on social media and then implement what they talked about. And people love that. They're like, wow, this guy actually listens. He said thank you. And he's back for more, right? You start building relationships that way. So that's probably the biggest thing I've learned because it's always changing. I mean, if I just stuck with what I knew initially, like I did a course when I first got started that helped me a lot. And if I just did that and never evolved, never changed, I'd be falling behind. Like Adam, I learned a lot from you as well. And because you've I don't know how long you've been doing this, but long enough to know a lot of things, but also you learn the new trends and that helps me continue to evolve and get better.
Awesome. I really like that. I think that's really beneficial for the listener to know that even when you're up there, we need to still be always learning and growing. I'm a huge advocate for self-improvement, reading all those books and learning and growing and taking time to exercise and meditate and all that kind of stuff. Just trying to grow who I am as a person. And it sounds like you're doing that, but you're also putting it into your growth as an entrepreneur, as a podcaster as well. A couple things that I've had several ideas of what to ask you, what to talk about, but I know that I stole a little bit of the thunder in the beginning doing the intro on some of the benefits to doing podcast interview swaps. But I'd really like to give you a couple of minutes on the topic of what a podcast interview swap really can do for somebody. And maybe because you have tons, how many users are on your platform today as we record?
I know it passed 6,000 2 days ago. So it's something a little bit past that.
Awesome. So with thousands and thousands of people on there every day, maybe you can pull out one experience from a couple of people that met on the platform or something like that. So share with us the advantages that you see in your own words of collaborating with other podcasters.
Yeah. I mean, first off, usually podcasters are fairly like-minded. Like you and I, we're probably like-minded individuals. Like by the time we're done with this, we'd be like, wow, we should do more work together. And that's just kind of like a usual thing that happens in podcasting. Again, if you get the right mindset. With that said, in your same niche or focus, if this was a comedy podcast, you'd learn two things about me. One, I'm probably not very similar to you, and I'm not that funny. Like those are the things that you learn. It's got to be like in the same sort of category that you're in, right? Because that shows we're like-minded. We have something that we're helping each other with. So on the platform, there's actually this was 2 days ago or 3 days ago that I realized this. I had two people that I've known outside of Podmatch. They happened to join. One's in my city, one's in Orlando, Florida, and I had talked with both of them on separate occasions. Turns out they did an interview together and decided to launch another podcast / company together. So they're actually helping corporations it's like a full stop, like one-stop service for those corporations to have a podcast using these individuals. And they've already built up some business. They're already doing really well, but they found each other through Podmatch, did an interview together, and now they're launching this business that they're both focused on. It was really cool to see that. Like I was like, oh, I know these guys. Oh, wow, they're working together. Like that's really cool. And I have the opportunity next week to do a conference call with them and try to push some business their way just because they've both had me on their shows. And so it's really cool just to see how that collaboration just continues. And on top of that, I find that it adds a lot of value to the listeners. Like when you get the right people in a room, the right people on a podcast together, it can really benefit somebody who's listening. And that to me, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. And I just think that when you see that happening, it adding value to people, you and I know that it's helping. And that's why we want to work together more because like, wow, we could probably serve more people if we did more of this type of thing together.
Yeah. And I like that you mentioned that you're going to be able to work with other people, like actually do business with them, maybe start a business with them or affiliate with them or just pass business with each other. One of the things that's come out of my podcast journey. Now I sold my first podcast about real estate. And one neat thing about that is through the podcast, I was able to kind of grow an influence of being able to have lots of people come to my real estate conferences. But additionally, one experience I had, just for an example, is I had a guy named Michael Blanc on my podcast, and he does apartment investing. And I let him know that I do it, and then he had me on his show. And what's really awesome is he ended up having me affiliate I was a speaker for his conference, and I invited my podcast listeners to his conference. And what's kind of cool is I was one of the top affiliates to working with him, and I got to share the stage with Hal Elrod, which he wrote The Miracle Morning. And then because I was one of the top people, we had a dinner with Hal Elrod, and just getting to know him like as a friend was incredible. Texting him on his birthday, asking him if he wants to speak at our mastermind and having him say yes, and having him ask like if I can help Hal create a meetup around Miracle Morning. So, later on, I think in 2022, but like that type of thing never would have happened if I didn't have a podcast. None of that. I wouldn't have really met Michael Blanc. I wouldn't have had Michael on my show because I wouldn't have had one. I wouldn't have been able to get in front on Michael's show or speak at his event if I didn't have a podcast. Just because I was an influencer in that space allowed me to open up new doors that never were there before. And just meeting and befriending somebody as incredible as Hal was remarkable, not just because he's famous, but just because he's an amazing guy. And that type of thing, I think, speaks highly to what you're saying with your two friends who met on your platform. They're launching a business and now you're working with them. It opens up so many doors to have a podcast, but also to start doing these reciprocal interviews, which podmatch.com takes care of. I want to ask, what did you do before Podmatch? Like, are you an entrepreneur with dozens of businesses like me, where 8 of them fail and 2 of them succeed? One of them gets boring. One of them makes a whole bunch of money. Like, what's kind of your background?
I'm more than 9 in 1, so 9 fail, 1 succeeds type of thing.
I'm definitely the 8 and 2, but the one of the 2 that succeeds just gets so boring. I'm like, okay, I'm done with this.
Right.
So it basically still fails, but because of lack of interest.
I hear you.
So tell me about like kind of your entrepreneurship journey, because I know Creating a Brand is an entrepreneurship podcast that ranks top 20 in entrepreneurship, which is one of the hardest categories. I know because I serve 20 podcasters today, and we track where they are. I've gotten a few people in the top 200.
Nice.
That's very challenging to get into the top 20 because it's such a huge. There's millions of podcasts out there, 1.9 million as we record today, but most of them tend to have business or entrepreneurship as a category. So it just becomes such a huge challenge. So what did you do to get there? And I also want to know kind of like, what was your experience like kind of even launching the podcast? Like, what did you do before you launched the podcast? I know it's 2 questions. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I had a little bit of a hack that I didn't know was coming when I launched my show. So I launched my show exactly 4 days before the entrepreneurship category was created in Apple, which really worked to my advantage. So right as I launched, I text everyone I know. Like I didn't have a big network or anything like that, but I hit the next day after I launched, the next morning, it was featured new and noteworthy. And then I got an email that they're opening entrepreneurship. And I think I was one of the first podcasts to select entrepreneurship, and I was being featured. So I got this huge spike, huge boost. Actually, there was 1 week where I was on the all of Apple global top charts of number 197 out of every podcast, which for me, with 300 followers on social media or whatever it was at that time, right? Like that was crazy, but it was literally a right place at the right time sort of thing. Somebody in their staff saw me, decided to feature it. So we were featured for 8 weeks. And then again, being really early into the entrepreneurship category, it just gave me this huge spike because when you went to it for a little bit, I was one of the few podcasts that were in there. I mean, it was me, it was Entrepreneurs on Fire with JLD, it was Smart Passive Income, and I was like right there with those guys. I'm like, wow, I look really cool right now. I remember even taking a screenshot of it one day. I'm like, I can't believe my podcast is next to these names, right? And so that gave me a really good start for my show. It was a right place, right time type of scenario. I couldn't tell someone how to do that again necessarily. It just happened. I just kind of hit the lottery with that side of things. I know that's not good for business necessarily. I don't have anything to teach you there. But I will say this, reach out to everyone you know if you launch a podcast. If you haven't launched yet, tell everybody you know and ask them to share it with somebody. And that's how I grew really organically at the start. But anyway, I hope that answers that first question there.
Yeah. And so you mentioned the 9-in-1. What businesses have you started, and why did that make you start an entrepreneurship podcast around creating a brand?
Yeah, so I was exaggerating a little bit. I mean, ever since I was a kid, I've kind of had this entrepreneurial mind. I come from a family of entrepreneurs as well. Like when I was 10, I started selling used golf balls in our neighborhood because there was a golf course. Instead of lemonade like the rest of the kids, we'd go dig them out of the lakes and just sell them at the 7th tee box because we found that's like the sweet spot when golfers are thinking, I don't know if I'm going to have enough golf balls to make it through the whole day. And that's when you can make some pretty good sales. So as a 10-year-old kid, it was adorable. If I tried that now, that wouldn't work. But we made a lot of money as little kids, me and a couple kids in the neighborhood. So that was kind of like my introduction, if you will. Later on, I went to do a startup in the real estate space. I was doing virtual tours of homes, which you're familiar with, where there used to be the images you could drag like 365. You could like look at the roof. You could spin it around with your mouse and stuff like that. Me and a group of people developed that software, at least one version of it. And there was 3 editors and 4 photographers working with that. And then I started investing in real estate, and then the real estate market crashed. So that was kind of like whenever I just like basically sold that part of the business off. I had some rental properties at that time, ended up moving into one. It was kind of a mess. Let's put it that way. So that was kind of like my first introduction to like entrepreneurship as an adult. So I went from like being a kid to being an adult. And then I got into aerospace for years, and the company, because that was when the whole recession hit, that was one of the industries that I saw that didn't get hit too negatively. I'm like, I'm going to go there because it's safe. So I started working at a company that had a great startup feel, but really grew over the years. I was with them for 15 years, and they went from feeling like a very small like company where you can make a decision and tomorrow everyone's doing it, to being part of a multi-billion-dollar organization where it was like 6 months to think of an idea type of thing to 2 years to implementation. It turned into a lot, and I really loved that. I worked my way up to a senior director in that company. And I always had that entrepreneurial mind, but when it got really big corporate, I was like, time to move on. And that's actually when I started the podcast a couple of years ago, or I guess a few years ago now. I wanted to get back into entrepreneurship. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to jump into some podcasting stuff and just kind of see how that goes. So I started doing some speaking and things like that and traveling around, and some doors finally opened up. That's when I got the idea for Podmatch, and the rest is kind of history at this point.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I want to ask you to share a few of the tips, tricks, or strategies that you've learned along the way. We'll try to do 3 of them, 3 major tips that'll really help. Like if we're listening to this podcast today and trying to launch our podcast tomorrow, what can you help with? I know that the one thing with finding the entrepreneurship category right at the right time might not work for everybody. So what 3 tips will?
The first thing I'm going to say is find your avatar. That's the most important thing, I think, is really find your avatar, which just means your most ideal listener. Like, who is that person? And get really specific with this. So not just, oh, it's somebody who works a 9-to-5 job and wants to leave, right? That's great. But with your actual avatar, like, give that person a name. Actually, funny story here. My avatar's name is Adam. Just a coincidence. It's not actually Adam Adams, but his name's Adam. And I've written a little bio for him, like how old he is, where he's working, when he's listening to the podcast. And that's been really helpful for me, is to continue to hone in on that. When I launched, I didn't have that really well defined. I thought that it would be more experienced business owners, or entrepreneurs, I should say, that would be listening to the podcast. But I found really quick that when I was reaching out to people that were listening and they were reaching out to me, it was people that were really early in their journey. And it made me come back and kind of hone in on that avatar. But I think that that's the main thing that you can do. And again, get really specific, like kind of creepy specific. Like, you know everything about this person. It's like you're stalking them, right? And then any piece of content that you plan on producing or think you want to produce, think about that person. And the best way to do this, I found, is to think 12 months in advance. So in 12 months from now, I'm always thinking, what would I want Adam to have learned in 12 months from now, based off the content I can provide weekly up till that point. And so I filter everything through that. It makes it really easy to say no to the wrong shows, to the wrong topics, to the wrong guest, all those type of things. But really think about this. And also it gives me the commitment that, you know what, this show's going for at least the next 12 months, because Adam needs to get from where he is today to where I think I can help him get. So that avatar is a really important point, I think.
Love it. And I got two major things from that. So understanding the avatar deeply, naming them, understanding how many kids they have, what religion they are, what their struggles are in life, what part of the country they're in, how they talk, what type of language to get in front of them that you should be using in order to move them from one place to the other, which, by the way, most people are talking over the heads of their avatar. They want to sound really, really smart. So that is a takeaway. But I thought that it was interesting where you said, think 12 months in advance with the content that you're creating. Can you help us understand, if we have a weekly podcast, where I guess that's 52 podcast episodes in the year?
Yeah.
I'm really good at math. Might not be able to say Sanfilippo, but I'm good at math. So anyway, if we're trying to do like 52 weeks of content, and you want us to think a year in advance, how does that look? Like, what does that look like for us as we're trying to do that?
It's a really great question. I'm glad you asked this to clarify it a little bit. So for me, one of the things that means is I think about that year in advance. And there's a few key topics that I think every podcast might want to repeat, or they might want to just hit at once in a while. So for me, like once a year, I like to hit the topic of taxes. And obviously this is around the time when this is getting produced, is around that time when you'd want to actually talk taxes. So I want to bring on a CPA. So I'm thinking in 12 months in advance, I'm like, okay, I want to bring a CPA on. I should be thinking about that person. Even if I'm not looking for him today, I want to make sure that I remember to do that. Another thing that I really like to cover every year, it's an entrepreneurship podcast, but I like to talk about the importance of sleep. Because if I realize those early entrepreneurs, the first thing that they cut out of their lives, because they have a full-time job, they probably have kids and things, they're like, I can just sleep less and I'll be okay. And that can be really dangerous. So once a year, I want to cover that topic as well. So it's not like the regular topics that I don't know what's going to be out in 8 months from now. Exactly. But I do know over summer, I'm going to talk about sleep. Next year in February, I'm going to talk with CPA about your taxes and how to save some money as an entrepreneur, like what you can write off, what you can't. And another one that I really like to talk about is friendship. And the last week of July is, I don't know why, there's like a friendship day, like National Friendship Day or something like that. And friendship's really important, because another thing that I realize these early entrepreneurs do is they say no to their friends. Because like, I got to work on the business this weekend. Like, I got to really do this. And that can be really unhealthy. That isolation can really clog up your mind and keep you from having creative solutions for things that you're doing. So that's kind of like the example. And then I can fill it with the things I know we're going to talk about a lot, like how to have better performance in every day, right? How to be less busy, how to do this. Like, those are topics I can plan out, but also thinking in advance makes it so I don't put those same things back to back. Something I don't want to do is have a topic about how to manage your time better, how to be more productive in a row, like back to back to back to back, right? I can say, okay, let's space this out. Let's look at this month as a whole, maybe next month. And doing that really helps. So that's kind of like, I hope that makes sense. That's the example of how I kind of think about this with it from a 12-month standpoint.
Awesome. And I wanted you to give 3 different ideas. So the avatar is huge, and it's also beneficial that your avatar's name is Adam. I think everybody should have their avatar and be named
You know, Adam likes to, my Adam likes to go to the gym a lot. I don't know if that clarifies for you as well, but he likes to be in the gym. That's where he listens a lot. So I don't know if that's you as well, but
Love it. Love it. I haven't been to the gym very much because of COVID times, which is what's still happening for some reason as we record. But I think that'll change a little bit. I love going to CrossFit. You don't get to wear your headphones at CrossFit, though.
no, you don't.
Big mountain biker. So I like staying healthy and active, but I guess I'm not your perfect avatar yet.
You're getting there.
But maybe I could be the avatar of the listener. It'd be like Adam Adams. That's my avatar, not just Adam. But I love the idea of making sure that you understand everything about them, where they are, where they're listening, what they're thinking about, what they care about, and what their challenges are. That's a really good first step. Once we've identified the avatar and we can outline for, the next 12 months, a few of the major topics that we're going to need to be able to bring to them on a timely basis, like friendship, health, and even taxes. What is the next thing that would help every single podcaster out there if they've already got their avatar?
So this one I'm going to share with you is one that I got really wrong. And I wish that I could go back and hear this episode because I really needed this one I'm about to share. If you want to start a podcast, start a podcast. Don't start a YouTube channel, a blog, a Twitter, an Instagram, a LinkedIn, and all the other things that people think you need for some reason. I made this mistake. When I first launched, it took me, I'd probably say 12 weeks longer to launch than it should have because I was perfecting my social strategy along with it. So I was building up all these different accounts and trying to get the images just right, trying to schedule everything through Buffer app is what I was using at that point, and going through doing all these things. But the truth is, what I really needed to focus on was the podcast because that's what I set out to do, not to also manage social media. And what I ended up doing was spreading myself so thin because I was just doing all these things and all these different applications. And truth be told, I don't really enjoy social media. I like LinkedIn. That's fun for me. I like Clubhouse now, but like sitting on Instagram, it's never interested me. Like I don't enjoy sitting there scrolling through images. I know that makes me like really an outlier in the world, but that's not fun for me. So I was spreading myself super thin, trying to keep up with the content of my podcast and trying to manage all these things. And I was doing that, I think, because I was looking at the big names in podcasting, right? All these big names, all these guys and these girls out there, they've got the most beautiful social media accounts. They're on everything. They're always posting everywhere. And I thought I needed to do that. But the problem is I was looking at them at their destination and me at the beginning of my journey. And I was comparing the two. I was looking at Alex day 1 to them day 20 or year 20 or whatever it might have been for them, right? And the problem with that is I had the wrong mindset. The truth be told, all those individuals that have all these social channels, they implemented one at a time. And most of them started with their podcast. They said, I'm going to podcast. They got really good at podcasting, developed a great system around it. And they said, you know what? I'm going to add Twitter. And they added Twitter and they just did Twitter until they got really good at it. And they said, okay, now I'm going to add this one and this one and this one. The problem, once again, is all of us, when we're getting started in this, we look at the people that have been doing this for a long time and say, that's where I need to be. When in reality, the recommendation I have for people is just start your podcast and maybe the one social channel that you love the most or that you spend the most time on or that you know your audience, your avatar has been hanging out on. So for me, when I finally did this, I kind of automated everything. So still this day, I still post on everything because I started it all, but it's all automatic. So I just repurpose the rest of the content that goes on LinkedIn because my avatar, Adam, hangs out on LinkedIn and I really enjoy LinkedIn. So that's really where I spend most of my time. And 90% of my podcast listeners that come from social media right now are coming from LinkedIn. Adam, I know that you know way more than I do on this topic, but that's my feeling on this point here.
I think it's really, really good. And I had a couple of thoughts just kind of coming to me as you were talking about being in front of your right avatar. And I wrote down your quote with, if you want to start a podcast, start a podcast. I think that's brilliant. And I will definitely piggyback on it and say that in my experience, people are thinking, all right, so I've got to have all of these things. And I read this book. I listened to the book because I'm dyslexic. So I was shoveling snow really when I got this piece. But it's Gary Keller's The One Thing. And this was a couple of years ago. It snowed a couple of feet. So my back was breaking as I was listening to it. I couldn't agree more. His team was like telling him all of these cool things that he could do. And he stopped and he said, well, what's the one thing that if I did that right now would get me to that next level? And he ended up writing the book about the millionaire real estate agent. And well, I think that's the title of it. I've read really just the one thing because the other one didn't apply to me. But But I've noticed that when he did that and he went all in on just getting this book done and didn't worry about all the other things that he could do, he was able to focus on it. And he eventually did those other things, just like you said. He eventually started a YouTube. He eventually, well, maybe not in his case, but
Right.
you eventually started a YouTube. You eventually got it posted on all these other places. But really, in the beginning, you're focusing. You're putting all of your attention in one place. And a lot of people come to me with wanting to start a podcast, and they said, "All right, I'm out the get go. I want to have a YouTube and a podcast." And so far, I've always said two things. Number one, if you want to grow your YouTube, I'm not your person. If you want to grow your podcast, I am your person. I can crush it. That. The second thing that I'll always tell them is, what if we just focused on the podcast first, got it incredibly famous, got it in front of more people than you ever could imagine, and then after that's systemized, just like you said, Alex, after that's systemized, automated, figured out, and working on its own, then why don't we launch the YouTube a little bit later, where we have more content, it's all available, and you can launch it all at once. Anyway, so I love the focus. Get one thing completely done out of the way before you look at another one, rather than half-assing two things full-ass one of them. And I think that's really going to help you get to the next level. Oh, I had another question, and I think I lost it, but I was going to ask what the third thing. So we've got avatar, and we've got focus. If you want to start a podcast, start a freaking podcast.
Right.
Not everything all at once. What's the third thing that a new person who's just launching their podcast can do?
Yeah, and this one's gonna be really unpopular, Adam. First off, like what you were just saying, like I plan on working with you at some point to help me grow my show. Like again, I'm just not. That's just I want to focus on what I'm good at. You talk about focus. I love it how Robert Kiyosaki says it. Focus is an acronym which stands for follow one course until successful. I am still working my way to successful, so I'm staying focused on producing the content because that's what I'm good at. And someone like you have a very different set of skills, although they complement each other really well. I'd rather work with somebody like you to help me grow the reach of my podcast instead of me having to try to waste my time doing so. Not that it's a waste of time for you, but again, like you're in your area of expertise, I'm in my expertise, the genius zone, right? So it's such a good point that you have there. And it kind of goes right into this third one, which is going to be really, really unpopular. But when you're starting a podcast, you need to learn everything about podcasting. And this is another mistake I made along the way. The first thing I did was sub out editing because I didn't want to do it. But I had zero understanding of how to do that, what was even used. I ended up really paying for that in the long run because one, it was expensive to pay editors, but also I didn't understand the process. So I'd submit my podcast episode and they'd ask for all these things, but like, why do they always need this? And now till this day, I actually still edit my own podcast and I won't sub that out. Now I enjoy it and I understand the process of it. I can talk to people about it. But there's so many of us that we just want to record and publish it. Now, if you do have a budget for it or you have some sort of way to do that, you're working with an agency, fine, by all means. But if you are like me, starting a podcast as a side hustle on a budget, what you need to do is really figure out how to do all those different things that pertain to podcasting exactly. Not to even become the expert at them. You should sub them out at some point, yes, but learn your system really well, because that's when I talk to people that do that versus don't, the really smart ones are the ones that figured all those things out, because they can holistically tell you everything about podcasting. Even if they're not the best at it, they understand and know all of it. The people that sub things out, they might be able to tell you how to do a great interview or post a great episode, but they can't tell you how to do the 30 things in between there, right? So for me, I think for a new podcaster, it's really important to really get yourself into it. It seems daunting, it seems scary, but go after it. Go all into it and learn everything you can about podcasting. Do those things, even if it's for a limited amount of time, and it's going to serve you really well in the long run.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree all the way. I think that it makes sense, though, to have, I would say, somewhere around 85% of podcasters don't really have all of that money that they need in order to offload things. But I would say a lot of the clients that we work with, I really feel like it's best for them to kind of stay in their lane, like you said before, like where they don't have to learn it all if they can hire the right person. But you did mention, stay in your lane, let Adam market your podcast while you put out good content. But you contradicted that by saying like that we should learn each and every piece. In your real opinion, do you think that's something that everybody should do, or just that a certain number of people probably are going to do it? So don't be afraid to learn those pieces.
First of all, I always love when disagreement or like not seeing eye to eye perfectly on a podcast. That's great. Makes for a good conversation. And to clarify a little bit, I don't think that you should do all those things. So I'm glad you said this, but I do think that you should understand it. Again, going back to the beginning of what I was doing when I started subbing things out, I didn't understand what I was subbing out, and that's the issue. It leaves room for you to really kind of get ripped off, which thankfully I wasn't. But I so didn't understand what was happening with my show that it caused problems for me to not really understand how podcasting worked. All I understood was how to record something and submit it to somebody, but it really benefited me a lot to understand the process of it. So for me, even if you just do it at a really low level or ask a ton of questions, like I do agree, like Adam, I'm not interested in growing my show right now because I'm very busy with Podmatch, and that's really a primary focus. I'm growing that, and that's why I want to work with somebody like you. But I do want to understand, and I'll ask a ton of questions. I want to understand what you're doing so I know. So when somebody asks me, I can say, you should work with Adam, but here's the 3 things that he's really doing that's going to help, like it's really going to help me out. So it's more so along the lines of like, can you actually understand all of it? And for me, I learn by doing. So for me, if I go back to day one, what I would want to do is do all of it, really figure it out somewhat, like not get great at it necessarily, and then figure out what to sub out from there. But I think that what I'm really getting at is the understanding of podcasting holistically, like really knowing how it works. Remember when I first signed up for hosting for my show, I didn't even know what that meant. Like someone's like, go here, I did it. I'm like, cool, I'm done. And then someone asked me what hosting is. I'm like, I don't really know. I think it does something with my podcast, right? Because I didn't take the time to actually learn it. But now I go back, like I've read their documentation. I understand exactly what's happening with an RSS. Like I know how to change it, what's going on with it. And that was important for me to learn. And perhaps maybe you still don't agree. And this is just maybe my personality. I like to understand what I'm getting into because I think I can serve people better in that space by doing so.
When you were in, I'm calling it aerospace. When you were in aerospace, what was your role? Was it like engineering or what did you do there?
No, actually, people always ask this. People assume I'm an astronaut or a fighter pilot or a skydiver, and I was none of those things. I ran the commercial operations division, so I was responsible for the company's processes and protecting the profit margins we had across the board from inventory standpoint.
Makes sense. Yeah, I was just trying to think like maybe you just think totally like an engineer. Like I need to know how everything works so that I can feel comfortable with it, because people like me and some of our clients, we're more like we want to get it done. We don't care how it gets done. We just want to be able to trust somebody is going to take care of it.
The visionaries.
And I feel, the visionary. So I feel like you are either a hybrid or you're more of an implementer. You're either a hybrid between like you're good at visionary stuff, you're good at big picture stuff, but you also want to handle all the details. Me personally, I would prefer not to know any details. I'm like, when I was starting the podcast, I did hand it all off to somebody else on the team to do all the post-production and everything. And I just started listening to it. And I didn't always like how my teammate would do the post-production. So I finally was like, this isn't what I want to do, but I want it to sound the way I want it to sound. So I definitely did try to take it off. But in general, I'm the last person who wants to know every single detail about every single thing. I'm like, just give me the high level, give me the big picture. Let's make the podcast work. And if I can hire off and stay in my own lane, I'd rather do that. So I liked the discussion as well. I think it was really beneficial to have, to see both sides. And in the end, it doesn't sound like we really disagree at all. It sounds like we're coming from a different place and have a lot of the same feedback on it. It can be really beneficial so that you don't get taken with all your money, and that you can make sure that you understand what's going on. I think that does make sense. And I do think that there's some people, like a lot of the people that I'm working with, that really prefer to just be completely hands off and let's just get it done. I'll just push record and you take care of everything else. Is that fair? They don't need to know what everything else is. They just need it all taken care of, and that's good enough for them. So I thought it was good.
For people like me, you actually are really helpful because you've already explained to me kind of your method for like what you're doing. Like maybe not all the little small details, but you've given me enough that I understand, okay, this is what he's going to be doing for me. And yeah, maybe I'm a guy I'm actually really good at delegating things. But I do like to understand what's happening. And that's probably, we're talking about me being an entrepreneur, but my corporate background probably did that to me. They put it into my DNA somehow. I like to understand the whole process. But again, I think in the podcasting space is maybe really valuable for understanding that. But, and I love to learn. I talked about that at the very beginning. Like I enjoy learning, but I think this made for a good discussion right here. And it gives people the opportunity to see both sides of that puzzle a little bit. So for me, once again, I'm excited to share this with my audience because they get to not only hear my perspective, but your very valuable perspective as well on this topic.
We've spent a little bit of time talking about podmatch.com and what we can do to have it and the huge benefit of it being free. Anyway, you're already serving 6,000 clients. By the time this is aired, it'll probably be 10,000 clients.
That would be nice.
But you're already serving so many people, and I think we've spent a good amount of time allowing the listener to know how to be part of that circle. What I want to do on the very last question for today is I want to talk about your podcast, who your podcast serves, and why the listener should jump over and give you a rating and a review today. Listen to an episode, give a rating and review today. So who do you serve on your podcast is the real question there.
Yeah, so great question. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about this. It's early entrepreneurs, people that are making that first step or that next step in their business, all very early. So maybe it's a side hustle, brand new startup, an idea even, right? Those are the people that it's really for and really helping. And we do this through a masterclass style episode. What I mean by that is the subject matter experts or the authors I bring on, they give like 3 points for doing X, five ways to do this. And it's very quick, very actionable, requires a lot of note taking. There's very little backstory. It's just straight into it. And people who listen to it, some people that are maybe not in that right phase, they're like, wow, it's so much information so fast from people. But the people that it's really for, Adam, right? The example that I gave of my avatar, those individuals, I hear from them every single day saying, wow, this was super impactful. I needed to really dive into this topic, and you just gave me a great deep dive of it. So again, it's for that early entrepreneur. And the whole idea is kind of help them make that first or next step, one that's really successful. And it's really the guests that I'm bringing on that are helping do that. Everything I do with that podcast is at creatingabrand.com. You can even find the episodes there. Super easy to leave a review. We have like a web browser link that you can actually do it instead of having to go to Apple, which is super nice. But yeah, that's what I'm doing. And I love it. I'm super passionate about the show.
Awesome. Alex, thank you for jumping on. I really, really do appreciate your time diving in, giving us those tips about the avatar, making sure that you're planning out, 12 months in advance, even if it's not every single episode, at least you're getting those big picture items. Additionally, talking a little bit about that second step is if you're going to start a podcast, not necessarily starting all of your Instagram and Twitter and TikTok at the same time. Start the podcast, grow the podcast. And then that last tip about the balance between staying in your lane and being able to understand and identify what parts it's going to entail. And so that you can better delegate it off to somebody else. A lot of good value. I just want to recommend to the listener of the show today, if you are trying to grow your brand, if you are trying to grow your influence, a free software like podmatch.com can really help you get there without breaking the bank. And additionally, if you want to jump in, if you're an early entrepreneur, just go ahead and jump over to creatingabrand.com or just find the podcast Creating a Brand wherever you're listening to this. Jump over. And if you do give him a 5-star rating and written review, if that's where you're going to take it after listening, please mention that you heard about him on this show. So, Alex, is there anything else you want to say? What else do you want to say as we're wrapping up?
Yeah, I'll end with this. And first off, thank you for that great recap, man. You're a killer host, man. It's no wonder you sold the podcast. The only person on earth to ever do it. You've got some talent here. So thank you for that. I'll end with this. This is a quote that I use often. And it's that everybody listening to this, we all have greatness and creativity within ourselves. Each of us has greatness and creativity within ourselves. And what I mean by that is all of us as created beings, we are made to create. So don't hold back from what you can do to serve the world, because you're the only person that can impact that one person, that avatar. Perhaps they're even waiting for you to do something. And if some of us, we just say, oh, I'm not really that creative. It's just not true. The truth is you do that by practice. So just get out there, get your message out and serve the world with it. And I find that the people that actually are able to do this, they're the ones that are helping make the world a better place. So remember, you have greatness and creativity within yourself, and podcasting is a great lane to do this in.
Awesome. Alex, thank you for jumping on. I'm going to let you go. And to the listener, if you are ready to grow your show, get in front of your audience, your avatar, and be able to really start monetizing and inspiring other people, then just go to growyourshow.com. We can help you set up a time to chat with me and my team, and we'll just get you to the next level. And we'll make it as easy as you just push the record button, and then we'll be able to help you out with the rest. So we'll do all your branding, we'll do all your logos, we'll do all your intros, all that stuff that's overwhelming just for me to share it with you. Don't worry, we take care of it, and that's growyourshow.com. I'm your host, Adam Adams. This has been an episode with Alex Sanfilippo. Said it right. I said it right 4 times.
You
Love
said it right, man. Good job.
All right, with Sanfilippo, Mr. Alex. And so head over to his podcast, give him a rating and review. And if you need any help, go to growyourshow.com and podmatch.com. Bye for now. This episode is brought to you by growyourshow.com. Grow Your Show lets you be the star of your show while we handle all the hard stuff. We offer reliable and affordable post-production services that allow you to grow your show organically without all the work. So go ahead and check out the website right now and feel free to schedule a call with me and let's take your show to the next level. Again, growyourshow.com. You just press record. We handle the rest.